Hi everyone, my name is Beata Wilczek and this is Fashion Knowledge, a podcast educating, disrupting and shaping fashion futures. Fashion Knowledge is brought to you by Unfolding Strategies, a consultancy and education lab for digital, inclusive and sustainable fashion in Web3. Today I have with us Christoph Tsetinis, 50% of Published By, an Austrian studio that specializes in making very sculptural and very technological pieces. Some of them, and mostly the one I know, are bags. Other 50% of Published By is Ruby Wallen. Ruby's not here with us today. Chris, super nice to meet you. I'm very happy that we're gonna chat today. And maybe I would ask you first to introduce what Published By is, because you're not a typical fashion brand, I would say.
Yeah, we're not. I think what we are is like we have so much different backgrounds in our team, and also like myself and Ruby, is that like Published By is more like a product development house pretty much. And it's also quite interesting how this is happening already after a few seasons, because people saw the bags, of course, and that's like the entrance to the brand. But what we do more and more now is like furniture, glasses, shoes. You know, I think the design language we have, you can apply almost to everything. And I think that's what we see more and more. It's something that, I want to be really honest here, it's not even like our idea. Often people come and say, well, I think you should do a chat. And then we do a chat. So we'll be as we do right now. And I think, Published By, it started as a fashion brand, and we'll always have deep roots in fashion. But I think new technologies are giving us the chance to create whatever we feel like. And that's really exciting.
Okay, cool. So let's go a little bit back. So what is the story behind your studio, your brand, and what is your personal journey as a designer?
It's quite funny. I mean, I started as a carpenter. You know, when I was at the countryside in Austria, I grew up in the mountains pretty much, and super picturesque, you know, where Sound of Music was filmed, literally next to it. And it's beautiful, but the fashion was not really somehow that was existing for me, you know? It was one idea you saw it once in a while, like a TV show or something like that, but that's pretty much it. And so for me, becoming I started with surfboards, and then I literally just went to university in Austria and showed what I would like to do. And they said, hey, you should come and study design and fashion. And I always wanted to become an architect, actually. But therefore, the study was really long and exhausting. I was like, nope, that's not going to happen. I want to do fashion. And I was really fascinated because it was something that was so far from what I knew that it interested me actually the most. Because I knew, okay, a house is a house. I clearly know what I'm doing. And I mean, as a carpenter, I did a lot of like furniture. So I was like, yeah, that's clearly what happens as well. But due to the fact that I grew up with this really boring furniture that I was so used to, I was like, nah, that's also not really my thing. So fashion was the thing that gave me the chance to dream and to think about something completely different and go further, you know, vision these shows and like the vibe and everything. I was really fascinated by that. So this is how I got into it. And then, as I said, I went to uni. I started like doing a lot of like internships and worked with like even like in the leather industry. I went to like some internships with like, you know, like how to dye leather and how to do the technical part. And actually, the cool thing about the Vienna like university was always like that you had the chance to be combined with other studios. So underneath me was the Zaha Hadid studio for architecture, and that's where I met a really good friend of mine back then, like Daniel Reis, who's now at Mercedes. And it was quite funny because like I met him and this whole new universe opened, you know, because these guys think so different and had all the input from the architects, and above us it was like product design. So the great thing about the university in Vienna was like that you could just mix it all up somehow. And then, you know, I started to become super interested in like product design, and that's how it happened. And then the funny thing is, like, I went to basically the fashion association in Austria gave me a first grant to design garments, you know, and then the only thing I really did was bags. And then I had one bag that was like basically the first Ruby's Lost Stone bag that I did. And that's what I showed in Paris. And then everybody walked by the garments, had absolutely no interest. I'm not going to lie, it was just like, yeah, whatever. But this one bag got a lot of attention, and it's like, oh, that's interesting. So also, we did really classic bags and products before, and me and Ruby back then haven't really worked together yet, but I was just really interested. We went through Paris and said, who really needs like a classic leather bag? Who needs like classic accessories or design approaches? So it's like, it's actually really dated and we don't feel like it anymore. So we basically threw away, or I gave away all the sewing machine, sold them, and bought one 3D printer, and then started to basically doodle around. So it was really like a floaty process. I mean, I was working for McQueen before in course at Adidas. It's all like interesting. But what really interested me was like taking new technologies, new way of producing, trying to talk with like people from a completely different industry, and work it out with them. And this worked. And this was like the starting point of Published By, really, I mean, even the name came up so smooth somehow, because it's a funny story. Like, I needed a name because I got the sponsorships, and it's like, what should we say? And then Tsetinis is like really close to Tsetinis, like the underwear brand. And I was like, shit, I can't use it anymore. So then I was like sitting at home and I was like thinking with Ruby together, and at 4:00 in the morning, I was like, I was like going through magazines, like constantly looking at Vogue and everything. And the only thing that always repeated itself was the publisher. So Published By is basically named after the published by of like Vogue Germany or something. And the reason was because I was like really tired. It was 4 in the morning, and I went through it. I was like, okay, this sounds good. Let's put a step on it, And then people loved it and said like, that's so great. And Published By is anyway a lot about collaboration and like collaborating with new people like Marjorie, that we both love and know and are really inspired by. And people from like, again, now I'm working with carpenters again, and I thought like never going to happen again. And so we are really lucky to have like all these people in our orbit that basically want to work fast and like also like, give input, but it's always like a choice. So this is, I think, honestly speaking, and I'm not going to lie, but it's the truth. This whole thing happened out of like a little water drop, and then it just blew up to a certain extent where we now like sitting here and producing like all these crazy things, like, and I think that's really fantastic. And I think also like we learned on the go how to produce it. So as an example, at the beginning, I had no clue how to 3D model. I had no clue how to do the molding, how to work it all out. And then the German car industry, who are not really famous for doing bags and other things, started giving me the process of creating these bags. And this is, an interesting ride, good one. But that's basically the starting point of Published By, in a really floaty.
Okay, I like that you use the word floaty, because I think it makes me also think about your aesthetics and your design. And as we are on a podcast and we are operating in the world of, sound and voice only, I would like you to describe, to pick two designs of yours, 2 designs of Published By. Could be a bag and something else, maybe something you're working on, and describe them in the most like, visual but also sensory way. I would like people to think how your designs look, but also, I don't know, how do they feel?
I think the best idea is probably to say where I came up with the idea. And it's actually quite a beautiful story for me, because I was on holiday with Ruby in Greece, where my family is from. And what happened is we have been at this really picturesque beach. It was really rocky, and you only could go there via like a half an hour, like kind of like hikey, kind of like trek, and we entered this trek, and after half an hour we've been there. Luckily, I don't know why, but it was like more like in October, so it was already like less touristy, and we've been there, the 2 of us, and we spent the whole day there. It was really nice, and the ocean was like so beautiful, like this azure blue, what was insane. And I love this. I always love these structures of like basically rock that is like, where the water cuts out pretty much the shape of the rock. And I said to Ruby, wouldn't it be absolutely amazing to create a bag that is much more sculpture and shaped by nature, like this rock, than something that you always like see constantly. So the bag for me was always like, the goal was always like to have basically a mechanical part that you put into the water and let it rest there for 4,000 years and see how organically shaped and beautiful the product comes out. So also like the reflectivity of the bag is all about like seeing yourself, reflecting your inner self. That's why we don't have any logos outside, because I don't want this. I want the bag to be as unique and streamlined and clean as it can be. So the whole like morphed shape of a stone that you can find on the beach, in combination with like the technology that we use of like the coatings and the mechanical parts that are like basically all flipped inside. That's how I would describe the bag. The story behind it is for me super important to always stay true to this approach of like, what would water do?
That's quite beautiful. I'm happy I asked. I didn't know about that. Because one thing, so on one hand, there's this, I don't know, in design, we would call it biomimicry. So taking those kind of components or different strategies or aesthetical cues from nature. But on the other hand, you always, in your interviews and your work, you emphasize really technology, and technology, broad words, can mean many things. But I would like to know why technology is so important to you, what technologies you introduce, and also what other ones might you embed. You said you want the bag to be very clean, but I'm already thinking, about different tags, sensors, making digital assets. So yeah, what is technology in your work, basically, and what is going to be?
Technology is like a tool, that's pretty much it. Like, people always say that I'm completely driven by technology, and I am, because I have to. It's not that I chose it. I didn't thought like, oh, you know what, I'm going to spend like 8,000 hours like trying to figure out a certain technique to like, because it's fun. It's needed. When you look at like, I don't know, cave paintings, like 4,000 years ago, they used a certain paint, a certain berry, a certain like liquid or whatever they could find to create the artworks that they envisioned back then. And I think that always evolves. Like, I think every time had its tools, and that's how far can you think is also combined with tools that you have in your toolbox, pretty much, creating certain styles would have not been possible 30 years ago. And that's often like, technology and style and vision and beauty goes hand in hand from my perspective, So for me, technology is only basically a tool and a like opportunity. And I think, but I have to say, it also shapes it creates the shapes because it's possible to create these shapes with my programs, So, like 20, 30 years ago, I said it quite often, to the team, we would have not been able to create a stone bag. No chance, because it was just not possible in case of like maybe for like a company like Porsche, back then, they could have done it, but not a small company like in Austria who had no background in any of these topics. It would have never happened. And this is often the starting point of technology, because, the one prototype I showed in Paris 4 or 5 years ago, where people really liked it, that was something that I could have done because I had the access as a student / I had my friends from university or like, artists who then guided me towards a certain tool set that I could use. And I think that's why I then like I have been able to create what I'm doing now. So, am I driven? Yes. Do I love technology? Yes. Is it something that I use purely as a tool set? Yeah, pretty much. And, but I still feel like, what comes now, and when we come about, the digital world that we are like entering more and more, that's what I talk to Mastery quite a bit about. It's like, what happens next? How can you put sensors in your bags? How can you make them personalized? We're working on that quite a bit, to be honest, like, to see what more can we do with the bag, what else can we do, like, can we combine the bag with the shoes with the whatever, the watch, So it's actually quite funny. We're working on a collaboration with Kamabuchi right now, because I really love this like idea of the 90s. And it's like something that was one of the first small gadgets that everybody could afford. So I always envisioned that like the last 8 months, I don't know why, is the first starting point. I want to do something. I want to find a way how to implement that thing into a little stone, make it from there. And now we're talking with like some other people about like a bigger concept, like could we charge our phone, via the bag? Can we track the bag? Do we have QR codes that show you like who owned the bag before, where was it produced, how was it produced? Was the CO2 like emission? So we do quite a lot of like CO2 emission like calculating as well. We try to like keep the technology. Again, it's about the options that you have now, and what you can create with technology and what you can create with the digital world. Not even talking about AI and like how that shapes our way of designing anything, but just what can we put inside is very much what we are thinking about right now.
Great. Yeah, it's very, very interesting to hear that. I think many, particularly based in EU companies, are now really wrapping their heads around the digital product passports as the new EU regulations are coming. And yeah, I was wondering, is this something that you think will be important to you to think about transparency and sustainability? You already mentioned that you do some sort of efforts, but how far are you from it? Do you see it as something, and how also you're going to be implementing something soon, or, in the future?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we will definitely implement it soon, but the funny thing is like what we can do now, and I think it's quite great, is, already with the materials. We know that certain materials will be recycled. It's like a water bottle that was used already before, and now we make a bag out of it. These things can be done already now. Often people don't do it because it's like 8 cents more and more expensive, but honestly, 8 cents, we don't much care. So you can already do a lot. Like the surface technologies are changing right now that you don't need to have any like water circles that are like embedded to the coatings. So you can like get rid of like wasting water. So I think the technology, if you're like open-minded and if you go to a lot of fairs, people offer you a lot of technologies anyway. I mean, as a fashion brand, we can focus on the technology of how to click together, how to make it, how to produce it. We can like put it, all the knowledge we have, we can push it all together. And the thing is like, that's really what we can do, I mean, we're not like a 400 billion company where we can like say, okay, we invent now, whatever. But that's often not needed. You just go somewhere and you just like talk with the people, and you talk with really smart people and say, can you help us embed your knowledge into our product, and what can come out of that? And often, as you said, like often you don't have to change that much. A small change of material is enough to make a big impact, honestly speaking. But of course, we go ahead with like our way of technology of saying, how do we open, how do we close, what's inside, what do we put inside in the bag, and how does it interact with people? That's something we think about. But like material science-wise, we're really like, working close with the car industry, who's always like is on the forefront, what is quite great, and often like much more ahead than the fashion industry itself. So working with them is a big win.
Great. Fantastic. And my last question is if there are any artists, designers, or I don't know, other industries, because it's something, those different industries, I mean, you often mention, that you particularly are interested in collaborating with.
I think the art world generally is super interesting. Like, I mean, it's a big market as well.
Could you repeat? Sorry, I didn't catch. What was it?
Oh, yeah. No, the art world itself is really interesting and inspiring. I mean, I love Tony Gregg, who's a German artist. Fantastic. I'm always inspired by galleries. Olaf Eliasson, really amazing what he does. Like the Icelandic artist. I love the work. I'm quite into right now into more like interactive art almost, where people can somehow experience. That's what I really enjoy right now. That's what really inspires me. I think, who would we like to collaborate? I think the most fun it is to collaborate with people and brands and ideas that are not necessarily close to our industry. It was like, Tamagotchi is, far away, but at the same time, really close. It makes sense somehow. Especially when you look at our shapes, it looks like a little egg, man. Totally makes sense. And the same with like, some artists, right now we have the honor to work on, some jazz with Carmen Busquet in combination with this amazing. She gave us the chance to say, think about chess. Oh, chess, yeah, true. So, at one point now, we're talking about furniture. And I think having this kind of like, overlap with other industries is what excites me the most.
Hmm. Fantastic. Fantastic. So, as you said that you love galleries and you love art, and galleries are inspiration, maybe we can conclude with your top 3 recommendations where people should go to see good art. What places inspire you? What is amazing?
Well, yes, more than happy to share what I feel is good. So there's one I was in Sydney recently, and there's one gallery that's called the White Rabbit. That is absolutely fantastic. I was there with Ruby's uncle Lawrence, who's a great artist and like really, really knows a lot about it. So he's always loved to go there with him. And the White Rabbit is focused on Chinese artists, and they are absolutely amazing. The gallery is so well done, and like it's beautiful. It's like a bright foundation, really, really great. Tate Model, obviously, fantastic as well. That's where I have seen like some of the best exhibitions, you know. And then I have to say, you have to pick your Austrian one to not get smashed. So let's say, let me think. I think the Museum of Angewandte Kunst in Vienna has some really, really great things going on, often really design oriented, and great talks and happenings. So, you know, out of pure love to Vienna, I will choose.
Okay. Okay, so whoever goes to Vienna, go visit Mac. There's also a great cafe in front of it. I love Bruckel Cafe. So yeah, thank you so much, Chris. It was a pleasure.
Bruckel is somewhere I spent way too much time there.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. And yeah, looking forward to seeing all your new designs. If you like this podcast and you would like to see it to continue, as well as receive more information from Unfolding Strategies, please visit unfoldingstrategies.substack.com and subscribe, where you will get access to our recent insights, reading lists, and podcast episodes, as well as archive of past newsletters, talks, and episodes. Thank you for listening.